Hey everyone, welcome back. This is where we left off in the previous lesson. We had just finished the forgot password feature. Pretty cool stuff. In this lesson, what we're going to do is actually just doing some cleanup, some housekeeping items, all right? And it's just going to be a few list items that we need to clean up. The first of which is to do a little bit of refactoring. I had a student raise some concerns over our extensions file here, specifically the handle fire auth error. And he rightfully pointed out and convinced me that this should probably not be handled as an extension to the UI view controller. It's not the UI view controller's job to handle auth errors from Firebase. So instead, what we're going to do is create a new extensions file for specifically Firebase items. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a new file here under extensions, or here under utils. I'm going to say new file, and we're going to call this is just going to be a Swift file, and we're going to call this Firebase plus utils and say create. Okay, and we're going to import Firebase. And instead of having that function be an extension of a UI view controller, we can actually extend auth, the Firebase module that handles all of the Firebase authentication, which makes sense for this function to be an extension of the auth module. So I'm going to come back here into our extensions file, and I'm just going to cut this entire function and paste it here. Now we are going to need to add another argument to our function here, I should say parameter, and that is going to be, we're going to need the view controller that this function is being called from. So this is going to be VC of type UI view controller, and then here for the present, we're going to say VC.present. Now previously, the reason that we didn't need this before was it was an extension of the UI view controller, and so it could call its own method present. Now it's an extension of auth, and so we need to provide the view controller that is going to be presenting the alert. So I'm going to save that, and then in our extensions, I'm also going to grab our auth error code extension and drop it in here as well. I'm going to save that, and that I think looks much better. Now we are separating our concerns a little bit better, which is always a good programming habit. So we're going to need to make a few changes. So I'm going to run this just so we can see what we broke. And sure enough, we have, looks like 4 places where we are going to need to change how we are calling this handle fire auth error. Okay, so now we can no longer call it from our view controller. We are going to say auth.handle fire auth error. And before I forget, one thing that we need to do as well, let me go ahead and say VC self here, is that we need this file to be shared. So I'm going to click on it, come over here to our file inspector, and set the target membership to both Artable and Artable admin, and save that. All right, let's get back to our fixes here. So I'm going to go back to home VC, and so this is where we changed it. So I'm just going to copy this and replace here and here. And then we have problems in our login VC. So I'm going to do the same thing here. In our register VC, fix that. And finally, in our forgot password VC, and set that as well. All right, let's go ahead and run that and see if everything is still working as expected. All right, so that builds. So that is looking good. All right, so that is the first item of business. And again, I want to thank Gaki, the student that pointed that out. And if you guys see anything else that seems a little bit fishy to you, feel free to call me out on it, and we can discuss it and If needs be, I will update it and fix it. All right, the next item of business is to remove a CocoaPod that we are not actually going to be using. I ended up taking it out. And so let's come down here to our pod file. Okay, so that's here under pods and pod file. And what we're going to be removing is here under the Artable admin. We are no longer going to be using the crop view controller. So go ahead and delete that. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to do this in terminal this time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal window. And I'm going to cd into our project folder. Mine's on the desktop. So I'm going to say cd desktop /artable. Okay. And so once you're there, all you need to do is say pod install. And this is going to, as you can see here, remove the crop view controller. All right, so that's all well and good. But the other thing that I want to address while we're here is that it says here we have a couple of warnings. It's automatically assigning platform iOS with version 12.1. All right, so that's because here in our pod file, we have left this commented out. And so let's go ahead and specify a iOS platform version that we want to target. I'm going to go ahead and set this to 10.0. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead and click here on our main project, and let's set the deployment target for 10.0. Okay, so what this means is your deployment target is the lowest iOS version that a user's device must be running to be able to use your app. So if you left it at the default of 12.1, that would mean that only people that were on the most up-to-date version of iOS could run your app. Anybody below 12.1 would not be able to install it, okay? So it's up to you and your company to decide how low you want to support for your deployment target. iOS has a very high adoption rate for their iOS versions, so you don't typically need to support too low. I think that 10.0 you'll probably capture 95% of your market. So I'm just going to do 10.0 here for Artable admin and 10.0 for the main Artable customer app. All right, so with that taken care of, I'm going to save this and do one more pod install back in terminal. And there we go, no more warnings, and we just get a pod installation complete. Very good. All right, and the last thing that I want to do is remember here with our active schemes, you may or may not see a whole bunch of other schemes as well, in addition to our Artable and Artable admin. So the way to get rid of the ones that we aren't interested in is just click on Manage Schemes. And then you can deselect all of these other ones that we aren't interested in seeing. We only want the Artable and Artable admin checked here. So go ahead and just uncheck all of those. And if yours doesn't have these pods checked, that's fine. You won't need to do this. But I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck everything that we are not interested in running as a scheme. All right, there we go. So that's going to close that. And now when I click here, I only see the two schemes that I am interested in, the Artable and Artable admin. All right, perfect. So just a little bit of cleanup and housekeeping here. In the next lesson, we're going to get to work on our UI for the main categories and products, collection view and table view. So I will see you in the next one.